Hi, and welcome to Awaken Coaching. I'm really happy to have you here today. Now, if you're a coach looking to become better at what you do, then you're in absolutely the right place. And today we're going to learn 5 most common coaching mistakes made by newbie coaches. Because when I look at most new coaches, they're trying really hard to become proficient, just like I did. The mistakes we're going to talk about today keep them from having really great coaching sessions and creating a great coaching experience for their clients. And these are mistakes that I personally have made on many occasions. Sometimes I still do, and I'm still learning from them. I think for me, the most important thing to remember about mistakes is that they are our greatest teacher. If we don't fail, we don't learn. And as a coach, you will know that failure doesn't really even exist. And it's all about learning, isn't it? Let's learn something today then. So the first mistake I want to talk about, the number one thing that new coaches try and do, is they try and fix the client. So fixing the client is the first mistake we want to talk about. Now, when I was in the early days of my own coaching career, I saw every client as a problem for me to solve. And I would get really stressed out because I wasn't able to get the client where I thought they wanted to be. It was all about me, you see, my coaching. It was like, I've got to fix this client. I've got to get them this transformation. I've got to make things happen for them so that I can prove to myself I'm a good coach. So I really wanted to fix them. I wasn't allowing my client to be. I remember this one time I had this client who had come to me. And there was one session in which she was looking for more confidence with a particular thing. And I had a method of getting her to understand confidence in a different way. And I had all these papers on the floor and we were looking at walking from one place to the next. And she just couldn't take the step that I wanted her to take. And in that moment, I broke rapport with the client because it became about my agenda, not hers, because I couldn't see how she couldn't take that step. Whereas from her perspective, absolutely, that step was impossible. And this broke rapport with the client rather than support the client's process. And as a coach, what's more important? Is it more important to keep rapport with your client, or is it more important for us to be right? You're going to hear my dog barking, by the way, in the background. So just coming back to this. This is a deficiency in the coach, not the client. And this was my deficiency. I wanted to be right. So I was trying to fix the client. And we've got to remember that our client is on their own journey. They have their own destiny of greatness within them. Our job as a coach is to support them and help them find this greatness. And not to do the work for them, isn't it? Which is what I was trying to do. So lesson for the coach number 1 is let go of fixing your client and let them become their greater self. That's number 1, fixing the client. So mistake number 2 that we can learn from is leading the client. Now, I see too many coaches who think they're in charge of the session with their clients, as if somehow they had ownership over the clients, of the client's session, and over the client's experience. Now, when a client is stuck, we can become really keen to jump in because we see this solution, as if it's our agenda again at play. But if we jump in, we stop the client from exploring to find their own solution. Now, as a newbie coach, I know I made this mistake many times. I would jump in with a solution rather than at times just asking the right question and becoming really quiet and waiting for the client's process to happen. And you know that you would have had moments like this when your clients go all glassy-eyed and they get the faraway look in their eyes and they're really within themselves. Those are great coaching moments. Those are the precious jewels of coaching. And when we're leading the client and providing them solutions, we're not letting them get there. We're not letting them explore their own solution. So there's a big difference here, isn't there? What is coaching and what is consulting? And we've kind of got to remember that that those are two different things. As a coach, we open up the space and hold it there so that the client can explore their possibilities for them. We enter a dynamic and energetic exchange with them, don't we? Remember when you had a session when you were in flow? The coaching almost happened all by itself, didn't it? It's like a dance, you know? I love this. There's this one quote I heard once about dancing, which I absolutely love. When you're dancing, you can't hold on to your partner tight. You've got to hold on loosely. So this is what coaching is about. It's that dance where we hold on loosely and we let the client do most of the leading. We only step in when necessary and for the client's benefit. The lesson here for the coach is to let go of leading the client. You become an amazing coach when you let the inner coach be your guide, just like a dancer. Doesn't need to think about their next step. They're right in flow. They're right in a beautiful synergy with the music and with their partner. And that's what coaching can be like once we let go of leading. So mistake number 2 was leading the client. Let's learn from mistake number 3. A little bit less common possibly, but maybe for people who look to do executive type of coaching, this is a common mistake, and that is fearing the client. New coaches can often get intimidated, can't they, by their client's stature. Imagine that a client is a higher powered executive or someone in high office. Do you feel right now capable of coaching them? Why not? Some of you would have said yes, so that wouldn't have worked on you, right? Now, this is where we come up against our own self-confidence and our abilities as a coach. Remember, this is the important thing. You're coaching a person, not a title. The title doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether the client is a clerk or a CEO. They are a person, and they are sitting with you as a human being. The title is completely secondary. It doesn't exist in the coaching space. Now, think about, great boxers, great athletes. Take a boxer, for example. Could the coach afford to be afraid of the boxing ability of their championship client? They're there to support them, right? Wouldn't this be highly detrimental to the client if the coach was afraid of them? It would. It would hold them back, wouldn't it? So the lesson to be learned here is, for the coach, there is no space for fear in coaching. Remember, you've got to honor the coach and client relationship. And in that, fear doesn't exist. So mistake number 3 that we could learn from is fearing the client. This brings us nicely to number 4. This is a little bit of a good one. I had a lot of trouble with this, and this is sympathizing with the client. You see, I always thought of myself as a nice person. So in my life, I've been very sympathetic. When someone has a problem, my heart immediately goes out to them. I really get involved. I literally feel for them. Perhaps you can relate. Most coaches are highly caring people. So when I first started coaching, I found myself sympathizing with my clients. And they would talk, I would listen, and I would become emotionally involved in their journey, in their highs, their lows, their laughter, their sadness. And then I found that we were just having a chat. I wasn't coaching. I was just sympathizing the way a friend would. That meant I wasn't doing my job. The client would go around and around in circles, and I could sympathize at every point, but I wasn't able to reflect back to them what they were missing or other ways of looking at their issue. I wasn't a coach, you see. I was a buddy in that moment, in that session. And I remember a time when I fell into sympathy with a client, and it was at that point that I know that client lost respect for me. I stopped being their coach. Needless to say, I lost that client. And rightly so. I wasn't coaching them. I was just listening, sympathizing. So the lesson for the coach here is to stop sympathizing. It's a real poison in the coaching relationship. You can still care, but don't fall into the role of being a sympathizing listener and caregiver. We can leave that for the counselors, can't we? Our job as coaches is to provide that insight and perspective to the client. And we can best do that when we're not sympathizing. So, mistake number 4 that we can learn from is to stop sympathizing with our client. The last one, the final one, and sympathizing leads us nicely to this one, number 5, which is getting into the client's story or getting involved in the client's story. This one's a little bit more subtle than all of the others, but it has really large impacts. You know how there are so many clients that are really great storytellers, right? All clients tell stories, but there are some that are so good at it that they can go from one story to another, and it's so easy to get lost in their stories. You become involved as an audience to their story, being carried here and there by it. Now, the important thing is, the client's lost in their story too, aren't they? And I'm sure this has possibly happened to you. They're lost in their story. You get involved in their story. You're both lost in the story. This happened to me a lot. Well, I'm a sucker for a good story, and I have to remind myself that I am coaching the client. I'm not here to be entertained by them. Though sometimes I do let myself be entertained, I have to say. Nowadays, I get this little feeling that tells me, hang on a second. I'm getting pulled into my client story, and I have to remember to pull myself out. I get this niggling feeling. Because when I keep perspective, I can easily reflect back to my client as they're telling me their story. And I make sure they get what they need from that session. I can pull them out of their story. This is kind of like being in a movie theater, right? And if you go to watch a movie and you sit in the movie theater, there are times when you get so lost, you completely forget where you are. You're so involved in the plot, the theme, the storyline, the characters, the emotions, that you're lost inside this movie. And then every now and again, something will happen. Let's say someone knocks on your chair and you remember, oh, hang on a second, I'm sitting here in the movie theater watching this movie. It pulls you out of the movie. Well, those two different ways, one is being lost in the movie and the other is sitting in the theater knowing where you are different ways of interacting with the client's story. When we are lost in it, we're in the movie. We're not coaching. We're there being entertained by them. Yeah? But when we know we're in the theater and we're sitting there watching a movie, we can nudge them and go, hang on a second. You see this? See what's going on in this plot line? You see this repeating pattern? What do you think of that? So remember, as a coach, you have to sit outside of the story to point out what is going on. Remember, you are there to coach the client and not to be their audience. So that's mistake number 5 that we can learn from, which is getting into and getting involved in the client's story. Now, thank you very much. I hope you found these useful. You can leave me a comment, follow, subscribe, depending on where you found this video. My name is Bud Panasa from Awaken Coaching, and I help coaches become amazing at what they do. Thank you for listening today. Have a great day, night, evening, morning, whatever it is. Thank you.